A millionaire was dining at the most exclusive restaurant in Madrid when a homeless man holding a baby knelt in front of her table. "Can I have your leftovers, ma'am?" he whispered in a broken voice. But when she looked into the eyes of that 3-month-old infant, she saw something that sent a chill down her spine. Those eyes, she had seen them before. What they discovered next would forever change our faith in humanity. It was a December night in Madrid, and rain pounded against the windows of the city's most luxurious restaurant. The royal palace glittered like a diamond in the distance while the elite of Madrid dined, oblivious to the drama about to unfold. Valentina Ruiz, 34, heir to an $800 million pharmaceutical empire, was mechanically slicing white truffle over her risotto. On paper, her life was perfect: villas in Marbella, yachts on the Mediterranean, exclusive parties. But inside, an emptiness had been eating away at her for 5 years. The doctors had been blunt after her chemotherapy: "Mrs. Ruiz, pregnancy will be impossible." She had lost the only child she could ever have. Miguel, taken by leukemia at age 3. Every child she saw on the street was a knife to her still bleeding heart. That night, as she sipped a 1998 Rioja, the restaurant door creaked open. A bearded man in tattered clothes stumbled in, shivering from the biting Madrid cold. In his arms was a small bundle wrapped in threadbare blankets. The maitre d' approached at once with a disdainful look. "Sir, you can't come in here." "Please," the man whispered desperately. "I just need milk for my son." Valentina looked up, and time seemed to freeze in Madrid's most expensive restaurant. Every elegantly dressed guest stared at the uncomfortable scene. The man's name was Marcos Blanco, 38 years old. His story was etched into every pain-lined wrinkle on his face. Once a brilliant engineer, the economic crisis had crushed him like a tidal wave: unpaid mortgage, foreclosed home, wife dead in childbirth 3 months earlier. Now he lived on Madrid streets with little Lucas, his only treasure in a world that had turned hostile. "Can I have your leftovers, ma'am?" Marcos asked, dropping to his knees beside Valentina's table. His voice cracked with shame, but his love for his son was stronger than any pride. Valentina looked at baby Lucas, and her world collapsed like a house of cards. Those crystal blue eyes, those brown curls, that tiny upturned nose, it was like staring at the ghost of her dead son Miguel, gazing back at her from a stranger's arms. "How long has it been since you ate?" she asked, her voice trembling. 3 days for me. Lucas had his last bottle this morning. The restaurant manager approached menacingly. "Mrs. Ruiz, shall I call security?" Valentina stood with a resolve that surprised even herself. "No. Bring us a private room immediately." The other guests murmured in scandalized tones, but she no longer cared what Madrid high society thought. She was about to make the most important decision of her life. In the candlelit private room, shadows dancing on the walls, Valentina watched mesmerized as Marcos fed little Lucas. The baby sucked desperately at the bottle, as if he knew each drop might be his last. "What's your son's name?" Valentina asked softly. "Lucas, after my father. He's beautiful. He reminds me of someone I used to know," she whispered, a lump rising in her throat. Marcos looked at her warily. "Ma'am, I don't want your pity. I just don't want my son to starve." "Tell me your story," Valentina urged, consumed by curiosity. In a voice broken by grief, Marcos recounted his fall from grace, his engineering career, his job at a multinational, his deep love for Sarah. They had planned everything perfectly: the house in the suburbs, a spring wedding, Lucas due in August. Tears streaked his dirty face as he continued. Then the crisis hit like an earthquake: laid off, home repossessed. Sarah died giving birth to Lucas due to complications they couldn't afford to treat. Valentina felt daggers in her chest. "And now where do you live?" "In a shack under the Segovia Bridge. Lucas is always cold, always hungry. I don't know what else to do." The pain in Marcos's voice was so raw, so familiar, that Valentina saw her own grief reflected in him. "Why didn't you go to social services?" "I did," Marcos replied bitterly. They want to take Lucas away. They say I'm not fit to raise him in my situation. And what will you do? Marcos clutched his son fiercely. I'll die before I let him go. He's all I have left of Sarah. In that moment, Valentina saw in Marcos the mirror of her own pain, a parent who would do anything for their child. What would you say if I offered you a job? Marcos looked at her as if she were insane. A job? For me? I own Ruiz Pharmaceuticals. We need an engineer in our R&D department. Ma'am, I haven't worked in 2 years. I'm a homeless nobody. Valentina walked to the window, watching rain fall over Madrid. You're a father who would do anything for his child. That's all that matters to me. Marcos shook his head in disbelief. I don't take charity. I have my pride. This isn't charity. It's justice. Valentina's voice broke as she confessed her deepest secret. 5 years ago, I lost my son Miguel to leukemia. He was 3. The words hung in the air like shattered glass. I'm so sorry, Marcos murmured, moved. Valentina turned to him, eyes shining with tears. Tonight I understood. Miguel didn't die to punish me. He died to guide me to you too. She stepped closer to Marcos and Lucas. Your son has Miguel's eyes, the same innocent smile, the same gentle way of waving his little hands. Let me help you. Let me give Lucas what I couldn't give Miguel, a life full of love and opportunity. Marcos held his son tight, fighting tears. What if it doesn't work out? What if I let you down? Then I'll still have done the right thing. But neither of them knew that someone was watching through the slightly open door. Someone who stood to lose everything if Marcos became important in Valentina's life. Ricardo Ruiz, Valentina's younger brother, had built his entire existence around one hope, inheriting the family empire. For years he had patiently waited for his sister to die childless, knowing he would be the sole heir. When he saw Valentina leave the restaurant with Marcos and the baby, he felt the ground ripped out from under him. Damn it! He hissed from his table, gripping his champagne flute so hard it nearly shattered. What the hell is that idiot doing? The next day, Ricardo stormed into Valentina's office like a barely contained tornado. You've completely lost your mind. You hired a filthy homeless man. Valentina didn't even look up from her documents. I hired a qualified engineer. Let's speak plainly for once. Ricardo leaned over her desk. You and I both know you can't have children. When you die, this entire empire goes to me. Maybe things will change, she replied coolly. Ricardo slammed both fists on the desk. What does that mean? It means I'm considering adopting Lucas. Ricardo's world crumbled. You can't. You're single. You have health issues. I'm rich, influential, and well-connected. I can do whatever I set my mind to. Ricardo left the office fuming, but his mind was already hatching a sinister plan. That same night he called his private investigator. Dig up everything you can on Marcos Blanco. He has to be guilty of something. Poor people always are. And if he's clean? The investigator asked. Ricardo's smile was pure poison. Then we make something up. Money can buy any truth. 3 weeks later, Marcos's life had undergone a fairy tale transformation. Valentina had given him an elegant apartment in central Madrid, brand new designer clothes, and, most importantly, his dignity back. At work, Marcos proved every day that his talent hadn't been destroyed by hardship. Your project for the new painkiller is brilliant, Valentina told him during an executive meeting. It could completely revolutionize the pharmaceutical market. Marcos blushed like a teenager. I always dreamed of working on something that truly helps people who are suffering. Like Lucas helped you hold on when everything seemed lost. Exactly. He's my reason to live, my strength to keep going. Every evening, Valentina visited Marcos and Lucas's apartment as if it were a sacred ritual. She watched them play together and felt her heart fill with a warmth she thought was gone forever. Can I hold him for a while? She asked one night, gazing at Lucas with eyes hungry for maternal love. Marcos handed the baby over without hesitation. Valentina began singing the lullaby she used to sing to Miguel. Lucas fell asleep instantly in her arms, as if he instinctively recognized a mother's unconditional love. Have you ever thought about getting married again? Valentina asked casually. Who would want a man like me? A penniless widower with a child to feed. You might be surprised, she whispered with a mysterious smile. That night, Marcos realized what he felt for Valentina was no longer just gratitude, it was something deeper, purer, more terrifying. But the next morning, a phone call shattered their newfound happiness like a meteor hitting glass. The phone rang at 8 a.m. with the urgency of a fire alarm. Marcos Blanco? Yes, that's me. Inspector Fernandez, Madrid Police. You need to come to the station immediately. Marcos's world began to spin. Why? What have I done? The charge is very serious, child abandonment and abuse. What? Marcos felt like he'd been punched in the gut. That's impossible. Someone has filed a formal complaint alleging you're keeping the minor in inhumane conditions. Who filed that disgusting complaint? A citizen who wishes to remain anonymous for safety reasons. When Valentina rushed to the station, she found Marcos in tears. I don't understand any of this. I'm lost, like a child. Lucas is perfectly fine. He eats well, sleeps well, he's happy with me. I know, Valentina whispered, hugging him tightly. I know you're the most wonderful father in the world. But Inspector Fernandez was immovable. Mrs. Ruiz, I understand you're emotionally involved, but the law is clear. The child will go to foster care until the investigation is resolved. You can't take my son. Marcos shouted in desperation. He's all I have. Can I take temporary custody? Valentina pleaded. I have all the financial and social qualifications. I'm sorry, ma'am. The law makes no exceptions. When the social workers took Lucas away, the baby's heartbreaking cries pierced everyone present. Marcos collapsed to the floor like a broken doll. Lucas. Daddy's here. Valentina helped him up, her own heart shattering. We'll get him back. I swear on Miguel's memory. But she didn't yet know the real culprit was celebrating in his luxury office. Ricardo Ruiz smiled wickedly while sipping Dom Perignon. Checkmate, dear sister. Valentina immediately hired Madrid's best lawyer, but the fabricated evidence against Marcos seemed insurmountable. Photos of the child crying, anonymous neighbor testimonies, clearly falsified medical reports. Someone with a lot of money and power orchestrated this conspiracy, the lawyer analyzed. Finding solid proof will be extremely difficult. Ricardo, Valentina whispered with icy certainty. It was my brother Ricardo. That night, Valentina turned private detective. She staked out her brother's office building. At 11 p.m., she saw Ricardo sneak out with a thick envelope stuffed with cash. She followed him through Madrid's dark streets to a seedy bar on the outskirts. Excellent work, Fernandez, she heard Ricardo say as he greeted a shady-looking man. The photos are perfectly convincing. No one will doubt that child is being abused. And I paid the false witnesses generously. They'll say exactly what we need. Valentina recorded every word on her phone, rage boiling in her veins. The next day she stormed into Ricardo's office accompanied by the civil guard. Ricardo Ruiz, you are under arrest for slander, corruption, document forgery, and conspiracy, the sergeant announced. Ricardo went pale as death. Valentina, wait. Can we talk this out civilly? You destroyed an innocent man's life and separated a father from his son for money. You're a soulless monster. It was just business. Lucas isn't really your son. Valentina looked at him with utter contempt. You're right. He's not my biological son, but he will be legally. As Ricardo was led away in handcuffs, Valentina raced to the foster home. Lucas was crying inconsolably. He had lost weight, wasn't sleeping, and refused food. "My little one," Valentina whispered, taking him in her arms. "Daddy Marcos is here. Mommy is here." The baby calmed instantly, as if he recognized true love in her voice. 6 months later, Madrid's High Court witnessed a miracle that restored faith in justice. Considering the overwhelming evidence of Mr. Marcos Blanco's complete innocence, the judge declared solemnly, "This court orders the immediate return of the minor to his biological father." Marcos burst into tears of pure joy. "Lucas, Daddy's here, my love." The baby, now 9 months old, laughed, the most beautiful sound in the world, and reached his little arms toward his father. Furthermore, the judge continued with a smile, "This court officially approves the adoption request filed by Mrs. Valentina Ruiz." Valentina trembled with emotion so intense she could barely breathe. "That means Lucas will officially have 2 parents who love him more than life itself." 1 year later, in the gardens of Valentina's spectacular Marbella villa, the most emotional wedding the Costa del Sol had ever seen took place. Marcos and Valentina had fallen deeply in love while caring for Lucas together, discovering that true love can rise from the ashes of pain. "Do you promise to love this child as if he had come from your own womb?" the priest asked Valentina. "I do," she replied, tears of joy streaming down her cheeks. "I promise Miguel, who is watching over us from heaven and guided us here." Lucas, now 1.5 years, toddled unsteadily among the guests with the clumsy grace of a toddler. His first steps had been taken in that same villa, calling Mama and Papa with pure joy. That night, on the terrace overlooking the Mediterranean under a starry sky, Marcos held Valentina close. "Do you really believe Miguel is our guardian angel?" he asked in wonder. "I'm absolutely certain," Valentina whispered. "He guided us to each other through pain to create something beautiful. It all started when you asked for my leftovers in that restaurant, and now we have everything we ever dreamed of but never thought possible." Lucas slept peacefully in his crib, surrounded by the unconditional love of 2 people destiny had united to heal their wounds. Ricardo was serving 5 years in prison, but he had lost the most valuable thing of all, the love of a family. Love had triumphed over greed, generosity had defeated evil, and hope had risen from the ashes of despair. And somewhere among the stars, a 3-year-old boy named Miguel smiled eternally, happy to have brought 3 broken hearts together to form one new and perfect one. If this story touched the deepest part of your heart, if you believe every child deserves unconditional love and every parent deserves a second chance, leave a heart below. We'd love to hear your own stories. Have you ever helped a complete stranger with no expectation of anything in return? Do you believe our loved ones who have passed can guide us from the other side? What's the most beautiful selfless act you've ever received? If this story moved you to tears, give it a like. If you believe true love can change the world, subscribe so you don't miss more stories that will restore your faith in humanity. Share it with anyone who needs a dose of hope. Comment "Miracle of Love" if you too believe in the transformative power of kindness. Remember, sometimes one small act of compassion can change 3 lives forever. See you in the next video with another story proving that miracles still happen in our world. We love you deeply, beautiful souls who still believe in the power of love.